Hey guys, there's been a lot of hubbub recently about coaching and coaching effectively. So what I want to give you today is what we found to be the nuts and bolts of effective coaching, because that's the key, right? To be effective, not just to coach your team, but to be effective. So here's the deal. Number one, you can't just go out there and use a bunch of words and try to fake your way into coaching. First thing is, they're going to feel it and not really tap into what you're trying to do. And number two, you can't have the energy. You don't have the excitement. You don't feel energized by doing that. Being real, genuine, and authentic becomes really important in coaching. So first things first, you've got to genuinely care enough about them to coach them effectively, even if you've heard it over and over again. Because here's the deal. Even though you've heard their stories over and over and over again, the bottom line is every moment is different. And what's interesting is if you'll get engaged, be present with them, and I mean 100% present, and do what I'm about ready to share with you, there's a connection that you'll feel, almost like a spiritual connection. And it'll create passion and desire and excitement in you coaching. Because let's face it, if you don't have enthusiasm when you're coaching these people, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to follow through with the coaching you give them, the direction that you lead them through. So number one, we want them to follow your coaching. And number two, we want you to feel passionate, powerful, energized about it. Otherwise, you can't sustain just using a bunch of words, right? So we want you to get results. And when you get results, you're going to want to do it again. So effective coaching. Here's the deal. Your team right now has a wall. It's a wall that they've built up, a self-protection mechanism, and they don't even know it's there, most of them. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And what lies behind this wall is cooperation and productivity. And what we want to do is tap into that cooperation and productivity. On average, we found it to be about 40 to 60%, which means if you effectively coach, you'll get 40 to 60% more from your team. How would that be? Awesome, right? So here's the key. Number one, we got to make sure our intention's in the right place. So here's what we recommend you do first and foremost. Look for the good in them. Look for the good. Now, when I'm saying looking for the good, it's not just looking for their shoes or their eyes or how wonderful their shirt is. No, it's not that. It's looking at a core level, their character traits. What are their character traits? Their enthusiasm, their excitement, their compassion, their desire, their confidence, their love. I mean, this is what we're looking for. We've got to look at a core level for these things. Og Mandino recommends that you do this by saying, I love you underneath your breath. And I know that may sound crazy, but I love you underneath your breath. Og Mandino, author of The Greatest Salesman in the World, the greatest or most sold self-help book in the history of the world. Guys, it's part of what we teach in our process. Looking for the good, saying I love you underneath your breath and making it about the other person, because that'll change your entire physiology. Your body language will change when you do that. You take it off of you, the focus off you, and put it on them. Key to effective coaching, to make it about them. Then verbalize it. And don't just give blind comments. Oh, you look fantastic today. Remember, we're looking for their character traits, and then verbalize that to them. What I love about what you're saying is there's so much enthusiasm and passion in your voice that I think you can accomplish this, because I can hear that enthusiasm and excitement. Verbalize it. I love your patience. I love your excitement. I love your joy. I love your compassion. I love your desires. I mean, whatever those are, you verbalize them. And then what you can do then is start to listen for clues about what's going on in their life. Verbal hints. We call them doors. Doors into somebody's walls. Listen for those doors. What are they? In the sales world, we've always viewed them as objections. It costs too much. I don't have the time. When we're coaching people, we view them as excuses, right? My mother-in-law broke her leg and I had to go pay a visit to her. Or, gosh, I just didn't get to those phone calls last night because there was thunder outside and our phones went down for a minute. Excuses, right? The bottom line is this, guys. We know those aren't the reasons why they're not doing what they say they're supposed to be doing. It's way deeper than that. It's at a core. It's a subconscious place that's causing them to not do some of those things. Sometimes it's conscious, but most of the time it's subconscious. We got to get that subconscious out and have them exploring that in their minds so they'll go out and function and work. That's what we got to do, right? So we can get that cooperation and productivity out there. But again, if you're not passionate about it, and it's all about you, I'm impatient, I don't want to hear this again, oh my gosh, if I have to listen to this one more time. If you focus on that energy, I can tell you, the cooperation doesn't come out. The productivity doesn't come out in them. So listen for clues or verbal hints about what's going on. So if they say, hey, my mother-in-law broke, you get to say the 5 greatest words in the world. I think it's 5. Tell me more about that. Say more about that. Help me understand. Say more. Are you okay? And I know it's like, gosh, come on, really? But you want to be able to ask those questions. Ask a question once you hear a door. Now, you might ask a question like, well, tell me how that affected your ability to make phone calls. Well, it did this. All right, tell me more about that. See, now we want to step into their world through the walls and ask them questions. You got to be present here, guys, and notice if you start to make it about you. If you need to be right about something, so what they're saying is making you feel like you need to be right, you're trying to fix, convince, make them do something they don't want to do. All that stuff's about you. Waiting until you get your turn to talk, that's about you. You can't fake this. This is about making it about them. Intentionally say, I'm sitting here present, making it about you. I'm listening for doors, and I'm going to step into your world to find out what's going on. Tell me more about that. Say more about that. Help me understand. What's that like? Those are all examples of doing this. Effective coaching. Paying attention, listening, and not making it about you. Now, if you really, I'm going to give you a bonus here. This is a kicker. If you want to bring down those walls substantially, ask a question that demonstrates you understand. Okay? That'll bring a wall crashing down. So, for example, if they say, I just can't make those phone calls. Have you ever not been able to make phone calls? What was going on with you? What were you experiencing? Were you tired? Were you exhausted? Ask a question that demonstrates you understand. So, for example, when you were in that situation, you may have felt, really lousy. And you felt like you couldn't make calls because nobody was going to answer. So ask this question. Do you feel like you don't want to make calls because no one's going to answer anyway? That's asking a question that demonstrates you understand. How about were you experiencing, overwhelm and just like, I don't want them to say no, or I don't have the right words. So ask a question. Do you feel like you just don't have the right words? Guys, when you ask questions that demonstrate you understand, walls will come crashing down. And then guess what you get to do? Invite them into your world. So it can sound like this. Do you mind if I share? Would it be okay if I gave you some advice? See, once you've listened for clues about what they're thinking, listen for those doors, stepped into those doors by asking questions, tell me more about that, and then ask the question that demonstrates you understand. Now, listen, here's the deal. If you don't know how they feel or you have never experienced that, don't pretend, but maybe other people have experienced it and you know how they feel, so you could ask questions that way. The bottom line is ask questions. Right? But when you can ask those questions and then validate people, and sometimes this takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes 2 days. You've got to trust your intuition. But again, if you'll be engaged, present with these people, and step into their world and make it about them, that connection, that intuition, that intuitiveness, that connection intuitiveness that you have is almost like a spiritual experience. And I promise it'll create all sorts of buzz inside of you. It'll feel amazing. And so every time you coach somebody, it will feel good. What would that be like if it felt good every time you coach somebody? That's what I want you to do. And then invite them into your world. Like I said, tell me more. Or you can say, do you mind if I share? Would it be okay if I gave you some advice? Because once you step into somebody's world, you're going to have advice. You're going to be able to help them with what's going on. And you're going to be able to be real with them. Practice these principles, guys, and watch the productivity and cooperation come pouring out in your people. Have fun with this. Take care.